All right, we're joined now by Matt Patricia, former head coach, Detroit Lions, New England Patriots coach for years. Matt, welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate you guys having me on.
And a proud member of the 33rd team.
Yeah, absolutely.
33rd team's own
Yeah.
Matt Patricia.
Yeah, what a great thing. Mike Tannenbaum reached out to me and just look, for coaches when we're kind of lost there for a little while. It's so nice just to have a home to be able to go and talk football and, watch games and go through different scenarios. Just the 33rd team's amazing. All of the things that they do, not only just the media side of it, the coaching. It's really been a lot of fun.
Awesome. We've been wanting to ask you all season when we finally got you on the show here. Defensive coach mostly. We'll talk about that in a minute. But as a defensive guy, a lot of defensive sim pressures, five-man pressures, things that offensive lines felt like they struggled this year. What was happening around the NFL from what you saw on film?
Yeah, I love the way that some of the defenses played. B-Flow, who obviously, worked for me at New England, and Todd Bowles and and obviously Spags, does a great job of it. But a lot of the things that we saw this year were, let's get as many guys on the line of scrimmage. Let's get the 5 down looks, right? So 5 defensive linemen across the board. Get the offense into what they call just one-on-one protection. It's 5 offensive linemen. They got to block the 5 D linemen. It's a bunch of one-on-ones. Show the 5-man looks. Bring pressure off the edges. Show the 6-man looks. Bring different combinations. And then just change the coverages behind it. And I think really what everyone was trying to do was bring the quarterback's eyes down. A lot of young quarterbacks playing right now, guys that are looking at the line of scrimmage, trying to figure out if they're protected, if they're not, and then bringing the sim pressures, bringing the extra guys off the edge, dropping some guys inside out, and keeping the quarterback's vision really towards the line of scrimmage and not really being able to see what's happening downfield.
And that part of it isn't that new, right? Like Mike Zimmer had the sort of double A gap look, that heavy defensive front look for years. What was new about it this year that seemed to have such a big impact?
Yeah, well, as coaches, we always like to think that we invent everything, right? We really don't. We just recycle. That's all we do. It may be a tweak here or there, but we're really not that innovative. In 2004, when we played, I was at New England when we played Philly in the Super Bowl. We actually ran. That was actually the first time I saw a double mug. We hadn't run it all year. And the double mug is that look you were talking about, Mike Zim, with both those linebackers walked up in the A-gap. And we ran it with Roman Pfeiffer and Teddy Bruschi walked up to really put as much pressure on, Donovan McNabb and Hank Fraley, who was the center at the time, as we could and get into that look. And then, Zim ran it after that. But all of those have been around for years, those different looks. And one of the things I saw this year, even compared to last year that was different, last year was a little bit more some man, but 3 under 3 deep zone coverages. This year we started mixing the zone coverages. Really, we call it like hot. It was really 3 deep, 2 under. So almost bringing the extra guy and just voiding a zone in the coverage. And I think that was really confusing, or that really kind of, gave some different looks for the offensive guys.
How do offenses fight back on that? Because there were some teams that had no chance, right? There were some teams you watch them every week, and it was like they're either not coached up against this, they haven't seen this, they don't have answers, and it did feel like defenses just did a much better job attacking protections in a different way.
I think a lot of the looks that we saw this year, the combination of whether the quarterback in the center trying to figure out and ID the front, right? You're always trying to figure out the Mike point, which is the middle of your, offensive protection scheme. Find out where he is and then use your rules off of that. A lot of the answers that we saw that I thought were great is just getting the ball out quick. A lot of these guys are great players in the NFL. So get the ball out to them, let them make somebody miss, let them keep going. Some vertical shots that we saw in there. And then just move in the pocket a little bit, getting the quarterback out, some different protection looks. And I tell you what, these quarterbacks are so good now. They're so athletic. Some of these guys, they just extend the play. And I've seen the plays where you got a clear free runner coming off the edge, and this guy just makes a move, spins out, he's gone. Now you got a big play because, as a defensive coordinator, you just lost the integrity of the defense because he's out of the pocket, and now you're holding your breath to make sure it's not a big play downfield.
You're obviously close with Bill Belichick. I was watching a lot of the content you were doing with him this year. I think everyone assumed that at some point Belichick would be back in the NFL. We've got, touching distance of the all-time wins record. Now he's there at UNC in college. Are we going to see him back in the NFL?
Well, right now, I think the biggest thing is UNC is excited. They've got the greatest coach of all time. Those players are going to be, coached really well in the game. They're going to be very smart. They're going to know what it's like to become a pro. And I think, the ACC and college football, I think it's great. I think it's exciting right now. And, it'll be a lot of fun to watch to see what he does.
What makes Belichick the greatest coach of all time? What is it that separates him from everybody else?
Yeah, it's hard to nail down one thing, but I will say this. In my experience, when I came from Syracuse and I coached at Syracuse University in college, and when I got to the NFL with Coach Belichick, I remember the very early meetings of him teaching, what we used to call situational football. And it's kind of common term now, but like 20 plus years ago, you didn't really hear a lot of people talk about it. And the masterful way in which he coached that, to me, was like this. As soon as you walked in the room, you're like, okay, this is a different class. This is like a doctorate program right now. I need to get my notes out and pay attention. And I think one of the beauties of what we did there is we took the extreme complex and we boiled it down into the simplest form. Because, again, the players have to go play. Like, we can't play. So we can tell them whatever we want. But in the end, they've got to be able to go execute it. And if you have them thinking about too much, it's impossible to do that. So give them something they can really, absorb, they can react to, and go play at a high level and a high speed with. I think that's the key.
There was a point during the first part of the dynasty where Bill was, like, really going for it on fourth down. There was was it either AFC Championship?
The Indianapolis game, I'm sure everyone, I remember, the fourth and two.
But not but before that, though, the 04 or the 03 AFC Championship opening drive, he's going for it in his own territory. The type of stuff that we call them the shouty shows on Monday morning. the shows they're like, this coach, he's going for it on fourth down, lose his job. Bill was doing that in 03. It kind of like tapered off a little bit after the 09 one. But it felt like he was kind of ahead of his time at times with some of the fourth down decision making.
I think all of those situational plays really, like at the Patriots, Coach Belichick, we were dialed into that stuff very, early on. And I know the analytics is the word and everyone's kind of following all different formulas now. But I think really what we did, and, as a coach, what you want to do is take all that information, try to figure out what the best in-game decision is, because in-game is most critical, and look, momentum, who you're playing against on the other side. Is it Peyton Manning? Do you really want to give him the ball back? How much time is left on the clock? The clock is so important in all of this. It really, when we boil the game down, it's 8-second clips. We're really looking at 8 seconds, and now we're talking setup times, and we're talking, okay, a play is 15 to 20 seconds long. How many plays are left in the game? How many timeouts do we have? So we're doing all of those calculations as the game is going, trying to really identify how many chances are we giving the other team, and what's the percentage that they can actually hurt us when we give them the ball back.
So you guys were doing analytics.
We were doing it, yeah.
Was
we were
Ernie Adams
to help us?
Ernie Adams doing? What was Ernie Adams
Ernie's
doing?
the best. I love.
What was he doing behind the scenes?
I'm telling you, Ernie Adams is one of my favorite people all the time. My office was next to his for 15, 16 years, and what a great guy! What an unbelievable historian of the game. Very smart, the way he can, just see the game and put the situational stuff and give us that real-time information during the game. It was awesome.
You guys are doing analytics and then scoffing about analytics in front of cameras and microphones for 15 years.
Well, the only stat is winning. We heard all those. The thing is it's not, it just wasn't, analytics for us just wasn't like, hey, it's very much this or this. It was like, it's a tool.
Yeah,
that's all it was. It was a tool.
You were doing it right. You were doing the correct way.
We were trying to use it to our advantage. So, even go to the Super Bowl against Seattle. Same situation. Told the story about the Malcolm Butler play, but, Hightower makes that tackle. The clock is ticking. Everyone's like, call the timeout. And it's like, so I'm trying to, are we calling it out? Because I didn't want to show the defense. But it really was about watching their sideline. And how much chaos are they under right now? How much stress are we under right now? And who do we think can make the better decision under this amount of stress? And that was, okay, we understand the analytics, but the situation we're in right now and the human factor on both sides of the ball, we're trying to judge that in real time.
That Malcolm Butler play was obviously one of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history. Such an interesting play for so many different reasons. Obviously, the way it played out was incredible. What do you think happens if they hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch in that situation?
Well, I would say this. The most amazing play is the play before the Malcolm Butler play. Right. Dante Hightower makes a tackle. I mean, his shoulder's not even, it's separated. He makes a one-shoulder tackle. Dante Hightower is a phenomenal player, great captain, great leader. I was so lucky to have him, as a linebacker. And he makes an unbelievable play. But I know the scenarios of hand the ball off. And Marshawn Lynch is one of the greatest backs to play this game. Listen, no one had a bigger party or sent flowers to Buffalo more than I did when they traded him to Seattle. I was like, thank God he's out of the division because I can't stop this guy. This guy's amazing, But that was the design of what we did. There was probably almost 2,000 pounds of flesh over there. I had 5 really, Vince Wilfork is standing there, Dante Hightower standing there, Chandler Jones, Jamie Collins, Alan Branch. I put as many big bodies as I could in that line of fire because I was like, the number one thing for me was I don't want Lynch to beat us. Like they may throw it, they're going to throw it, but everybody in the world knows Marshawn's about to get the ball. So I'm going to go all in to stop that. And we were in a locked up coverage outside. So I think we did okay.
Any other one-off game plans or games or you mentioned the double A gap looks and stuff in like the Super Bowl against Philly. Any other ones that stand out through the years for you?
Yeah, I mean a lot of great ones certainly. As coaches we tend to focus on the bad ones. It's like a lot of times people are like, remember that game you guys won? And I'm like, no, but remember this game we lost? It's just our coaching mentality. Obviously the Super Bowls are phenomenal. The other play Hightower made in the Super Bowl against Atlanta. The strip sack there, that was a great play. A lot of really amazing plays. I'll tell you, I was blessed to be around great players in big games. We went to a bunch of AFC championships, but my old heads when I coached linebackers, the Teddy Bruschi's, the Mike Vrabels, Junior Seau, Willie McGinnis, Roosevelt Colvin, a lot of fun memories from those guys, but I learned so much from them. As a young coach, look, coaches only become good coaches because they coach great players and they just sit there and learn and listen and watch. And that's probably the most fun memories for me is being on the sideline with those guys. And we're talking through, hey, this is going on. This is what's happening, and listening to them in game, analyze what's happening, and in game, hey, what about this? Why don't we do this? Did you guys see that? And I was like, this is pretty special.
So we heard your answer with Portnoy and John Gruden about you coaching offense and what happened with that. Dodged it well.
Yeah, well, you know what? Gruden, I think, answered it best, right? I think he said, what did he say? Defensive coaches,
guys,
they think they know everything. You know what the best part is? Defensive coaches think offensive guys know everything. So it's, it's great.
But what went into to the decision, essentially, to hand over play calling to you before you were offensive coordinator?
Well, I think, look, when I got to go back to New England, I was just so happy to kind of be home. New England is home for me and my family, and it was great. And, I went back as really in the GM role to help Bill because Nick Caserio had just left and gone to Houston. So it was a lot of change going on, and we've always had a lot of change at New England. It's part of the, when I went there originally, I was on offense. I went there and Charlie Weiss was the offensive coordinator, and I was the assistant O-line coach for Dante Scarnecchia, who's one of the greatest coaches of all time in the O-line position. And Charlie was one of the best play callers I've ever seen. I had come from Syracuse where I had coached offense. I played offense. So, I was not unfamiliar with offense. I obviously had a great career at defense and was very blessed to have great guys. So it was really a situation where, we were trying to make changes and fill some gaps and the head coach needed me to do something and that's my job, and try to do it to the best of my ability. And that's what we tried to do. So it was obviously, it's hard, all that is very difficult. But, we tried our best in the situation and certainly, listen, I like the defensive side of the ball. I like those bad boys over there where I like to hit people. So we're over there kind of, getting after it. So that's fun.
Because it's interesting. We've kind of praised like the Shanahan coaching tree. I think does a really good job of sort of cross-coaching those guys, cross-training offense on defense, defense on offense. And Zach Robinson has gone on his coaching journey through now to being offense coordinator of the Falcons. He's sort of understood how to attack defenses from that side of the ball. And the Shanahan tree, I think, has done a really good job of that. So on the one hand, it actually makes a ton of sense to take these defensive sided guys because they know where the defensive weaknesses are and vice versa.
Yeah, well, look, back in the early 2000s, I mean, that's Bill. Bill, we did that. That was Josh McDaniels was on defense. I was on offense. Brian Dable was on defense. Nick Caserio was on offense. So we just switched all sides of the ball. Brian and Josh came over. I went over to the other side. So we were always trying to learn the other side of the ball. And I think one of the keys for us, and we have a little bit of a club of guys that had to go through this, but we used to break film. We used to draw. That's where the pencil came from. That's where all that came. We would break down a game, and you would draw every aspect of what was going on in that game. So you're drawing all 22 guys. You're drawing footwork. You're drawing alignment. And you're breaking down. It would take me like 12 hours to break down a game on top of everything else you're doing. So you were, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You're trying to like draw, another power play or another, snag 7 flat route. And I'm like, gosh, I don't even I'm looking at numbers. It's not high def film either now. I'm like, is that a 6 or an 8? I have no idea. And then, and then you get like the teams like, you'd get, whoever it was. Someone's wearing black jerseys with silver numbers. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't see anything right now. You
Yeah,
know,
right.
yeah. Who's got the towel? Who's wearing this? Who's wearing so. A lot of fun doing that, but I really think that for us as young coaches coming into Coach Belichick's system, we learned the whole game. You know, you learn and you would learn, hey, this is why, you know, Andy Reid is running these routes in this game because he's running them against these coverages. So if you play these coverages, you should expect these routes. And I think that went into when we did cross over and now you're coaching defense and you know that offensively, you're saying, all right, listen, I know this is what they ran last week, but these are the routes we're going to get. These are the coverage beaters that he likes to run. These are the adjustments he's going to run in the game. And so you start to get ahead on the game plan that way of who you're playing. So much in the NFL, it's about the players. You know, it's a players game. Players win games. What you're trying to do as a coach is just give them as many tools as you can to go out and try to execute and operate at the highest level and just teaching them the game. That's really what we are. We're just teaching it. And breaking film like that and learning in that system, we learned both sides.
You talked about Marshawn Lynch before. We've been talking before, guys like Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. These guys that are capable of breaking a defense. You know, you have it called. You have a guy who's assigned to that. Doesn't matter. Who are the biggest pains in the ass to coach against because of that?
I probably got a long list, but even just right now, right? Saquon Barkley. Like, I mean, you know, you think you can have it all fit perfectly and he's gone. You know, I mean, he's just out of there. I mean, my wake up kind of the NFL running back wise when I got to New England was Corey Dillon. You know, I mean, obviously all the years since he was so great, but to see him in person on our side was like, this is a grown man's league, but then there's like grown men, and he was like a grown man running the ball. Certainly Adrian Peterson was unbelievable. I mean, I've played against all of them, and when you see a back like that, like, you know, we saw with Henry and obviously now with Lamar, the quarterbacks that can run this thing, man, it keeps you up late at night. And you may have it fit perfect, but sometimes that dude he's just better than you are.
All right, before we let you go, favorite stories from some key players. How about Gronk? Do you have a favorite Gronk story?
I have a bunch of Gronk stories.
Just list them all. Just rattle them off.
I mean, who doesn't have Gronk stories, right? I'd say my favorite ones are probably, I'll give you two. I told this one a couple weeks ago. So Halloween. My son is born, and we're going out for our first Halloween. He's dressed up like a pirate, so I'm like, all right, we're gonna go to a couple houses that I know, and you know, so we're practicing. I'm with Rob all day. We go to his house, and he shows up, and he's got like this knit Santa Claus mask on. Right now, he's all of 6'7", whatever he is, right, and 275 pounds, whatever. And he's wearing the same clothes he wore during the day. So I'm like, walk out, trick or treat, puts the candy in. And so my kids kind of walk out. I was like, hey, get a lot of trick or treaters. Like, how's it going? And he's like, how'd you know it was me? And I'm like, Rob, like, I know where you live. Like, you are wearing the same clothes I saw you in all day. You literally have a mat. It was so, but that's Rob. But my favorite story is we used to run on Fridays. We had a very competitive period. It was called goal line skelly, right? Goal line 7-on-7. And it was tight ends, linebackers, like, they're trying to score. We're trying to keep them out. It was a real fun period. And Rob was playing tight end, obviously, and we would chirp back and forth. And we had these, like, we call them garbage cans or cans as the O-line. And so Rob would catch a touchdown. He'd spike it. We'd stop one. We'd be going at him. So I'm standing where the center is on the can, and I know he's coming on the crossing route. So he runs the drag route behind me, and I just take the can and I throw it. I just throw it behind me. I don't even look. I just throw it. And all I hear is him yell. He's like, oh, and he hits the ground. I'm like, oh, and I turn around and I look, and he's laying on the ground. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like Friday before the game. And I'm like, oh my God, I just like, I don't know, I like hit his leg. He fell, like something, he's hurt. So now I'm sweating because I'm about to be fired. And I was like, oh my God, I just took him out. And he lays there, he doesn't move. And then he starts laughing. And he was totally mad. I was like, oh, you son of a, I was like, get up. I was like, you know, he was great. Unbelievable guy.
I feel like Gronk's too easy, right? Everything Gronk does is a story. What about Mr. Perfect, avocado ice cream, nothing but water? What's your favorite Tom Brady story?
Oh, I mean, I love Tom Brady. There's no one on this earth that I love more than Tom Brady. He's as great of a football player as he is. He's a better human being. And I mean, I have a bunch of really close, special memories of you know, competing with and hanging out and, you know, just that camaraderie together with him. Man, what an unbelievable guy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the field during practice. We were a very competitive team. We'd go at it head to head. So there was a lot of trash talk going back and forth. he got us quite a bit, but we got our fair share on him too. So that was just a lot of fun going back and forth, I tell you. But what just a great guy, man. I can't, just so lucky to be around someone like that. And it goes fast, right? 20 years goes fast, and you kind of pick your head up and you're like, what happened? And you start to look at pictures. And, I go through and I look at the pictures of like Tom with my kids after training camp and coming over and giving them hugs and playing with them and all that stuff. And that stuff to me is, take it out of the football world, just as a dad, for him to take the time and do that, my kids at the time, they don't even, they still don't really understand the impact of that. That's what makes that so special and makes him so special.
Love it. Matt Patricia, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. You guys are great.
Yeah, thank you.
Love it. Yep.